Imagine being a German soldier in World War II. You're hiding in your trench, when suddenly, you hear something impossible. The haunting sound of bagpipes, echoing across the battlefield. Through the morning mist, you see something that makes you question your sanity. A tall British officer charging towards your position, his medieval sword gleaming in the dawn light, a longbow strapped to his back, and yes, those Highland bagpipes wailing in his arms. You check your calendar, it's definitely 1944, not 1344. But your eyes aren't deceiving you. You've just met Lieutenant Colonel Jack Churchill, the man who made history laugh at fiction. Now, I know what you're thinking. This has to be one of those exaggerated war stories, the kind that grows taller with each retelling. But here's the fascinating thing. Every detail I'm about to share comes from official military records, eyewitness accounts, and German war documents. In fact, by the end of this video, you'll realize I had to leave out some of his adventures, because they're simply too unbelievable. Even for the internet. And yes, that includes the time he captured 42 German soldiers, armed with nothing but his sword and his signature smile. As one of those captured German officers later wrote in his memoirs, "We didn't know whether to shoot him or salute him. But how does someone decide to bring a sword to a gunfight? And not just any sword, a massive Scottish Claymore." Well, to understand that, we need to go back to where it all began. You see, while other British kids were reading comic books about heroes, young Jack was living them. He'd spend hours devouring Viking sagas, practicing archery in his backyard, and dreaming of battles that had long since passed. His mother would later tell reporters, Jack never quite believed he was born in the 20th century. Little did she know, he wasn't born too late for his time. He was born just in time to make history. Here's the thing about Mad Jack, he wasn't actually mad at all. The Germans called him der verrückte Colonel, the crazy colonel, but his fellow officers saw something different. As Captain James Pedder would later write in his memoirs, Churchill wasn't crazy, he was the sanest man I knew. He just operated on a different level of warfare entirely. He was a highly intelligent, skilled military officer, who simply believed modern warfare lacked style. As he famously told his fellow officers during a briefing, "Any officer who goes into action without his sword is improperly dressed." Think about that for a second. In an era of tanks, machine guns, and aerial bombardment, this man thought he was underdressed without a sword. And somehow, he made it work. May 27, 1940. The German army has pushed British forces back to Dunkirk. While other soldiers are desperately trying to evacuate, our Mad Jack is standing on a French beach, in full view of the enemy, playing "Will Ye No Come Back Again" on his bagpipes. The Germans had no protocol for dealing with a sword-wielding bagpiper. Their training never covered what to do when facing a medieval warrior in modern warfare. As one German survivor would later recall, "We thought it was a trick. Nobody could be that British." That moment of confusion was all Jack needed. With his war cry, "Commando," he led the charge across the beach, his claymore catching the morning sun, and his men, inspired by this impossible courage, following their modern-day Viking into battle. The raid was successful, and in that moment, Jack did something no other British soldier would do in World War II. He became the first and last to record a confirmed kill with a longbow. History doesn't tell us what the German army wrote in their report that day, but I'd love to have seen them try to explain that one to high command. But Jack's most incredible adventure was yet to come. In 1944, in Yugoslavia, the story takes a turn that even Hollywood would reject as too unrealistic. Leading a raid against a German position, his entire squad was killed by mortar fire, was knocked unconscious. The Germans found him, unconscious but alive, surrounded by his medieval weapons and bagpipes. Looking at his unusual equipment, they assumed he must be related to Winston Churchill himself. That mistake led them to send him to Sachsenhausen, one of Germany's most notorious concentration camps, where escape was considered impossible, and survival was a daily battle. But they hadn't met Mad Jack yet. In that place of despair and hopelessness, Jack Churchill saw opportunity in the most unlikely of places, in the very vermin that plagued the prisoners. He studied the rats, watched their movements, mapped their routes, and discovered something the Germans had missed. Where there's a rat, there's a way out. One moonless night in September 1944, Jack crawled through a drain he'd discovered watching those rats, carrying nothing but a piece of wire he'd fashioned into a lockpick, and his deep knowledge of European geography. What followed was a 150-mile journey through Nazi-controlled territory. No weapons, no maps, no supplies. Just a British officer with a magnificent mustache, walking like he owned the place. He eventually encountered an American unit in Italy, and his first words to them? "My goodness, I could murder a cup of tea." But here's the truly unbelievable part. After being rescued, after surviving the impossible, Mad Jack didn't go home. Instead, he convinced his superiors to send him back to war. This time, to Burma. Jack arrived in Burma ready for another adventure, his sword sharpened, his bagpipes tuned, only to find that history had other plans. The atomic bombs had been dropped, and the war was over. His famous response? "If it wasn't for those damn Yanks, we could have kept the war going another 10 years. For most men, surviving a war would be enough adventure for one lifetime." But Mad Jack Churchill wasn't most men. In peacetime, he found his own battles to fight. Against the waves as a surfing instructor, against London traffic on his bicycle, always with his bagpipes in hand. He appeared as an extra in Viking movies, perhaps the only actor who actually knew how to use a sword properly. He passed away in 1996, at the age of 89, but his legacy lives on. In an age where technology dominated warfare, Mad Jack proved that the human spirit still mattered most. Where others saw limitations, he saw opportunities. Where others brought modern weapons, he brought ancient courage. As one historian would later write, in an age of mass warfare and anonymous death, Jack Churchill reminded everyone that one person could still make history. And perhaps that's his real legacy. Not just the sword, the bagpipes, or the longbow, but the reminder that sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't the one in your hands, but the fire in your spirit. If this story of Mad Jack Churchill inspired you, hit that like button with the same enthusiasm he hit those German positions. And if you want more incredible tales from history, stories that seem impossible but actually happen, subscribe and ring that notification bell. Drop a comment below telling me what amazed you the most. Was it the bagpipes in battle? The escape through rat tunnels? Or his legendary response to the war ending? Share your thoughts, I read every comment. And remember, as Mad Jack proved, sometimes the craziest plan is the best plan. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next incredible chapter of history.